Hi, my name is Tom Letter, and I wanted to kind of give you what my story is of how I got to the position or the point to be making and training people how to use these light tools called selenite swords of light. When I grew up in the U.S. in a place called Bellaire, Ohio, and it was an industrial town, really. And the big thing for young guys my age was to play football. And that's pretty much main thing I loved to do was play football. But it did turn out quite well. I was a very good football player and played through high school, and I received a college scholarship to play football, and then went on to do an assistantship at a large university. But it was an unusual beginning in that really wasn't a lot about the light, wasn't a lot about meditation, but I got into kind of, I would say, the spiritual movement or starting to develop my spirituality in college when I saw a picture that had a picture of Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who was the individual that brought transcendental meditation out to the world. So I was in college, and right near the end of my football playing time, I saw this ad for a lecture. So I went and really liked what they said about what you could get from meditating. So I signed up and I went to the meditation class. And the first experience I had of learning to meditate, learning what they gave out in TM was a mantra. I had amazing experiences of transcending and like going beyond all thought. And when I came out of that, probably about a 45-minute training spot on how to do that meditation, TM, I felt completely different. And that really started my kind of interest in meditation. And I continued to do transcendental meditation for the next 25 years, became a teacher of transcendental meditation. And later what happened was I got into crystals. A friend of mine was interested in, he made very high-end precious and semi-precious stones. He would cut them into gem quality jewelry. And I'd go over and watch him doing that. So I got kind of interested in this crystalline realm. And so I asked him to get me a few crystals at a local show he was going to, and he brought me back some Lemurian crystals. And when I held these crystals, it was quite palpable. They actually felt very strong, and it felt like a really great quality of love was coming through these crystals. So I was pretty excited that I could hold a crystal and actually feel its energy. And so I don't know if any of you have had the experience, once you get one crystal, then you really want another crystal. And so I went to a gem show and kind of a metaphysical show in Denver, Colorado, and I picked up, wanted to buy some more crystals. But as I was walking around this show, I saw a young lady working on a man's leg with a piece of selenite in the aisle. And you know, she was in the aisle, so I figured I could ask her a question. I said, "Hey, what are you doing?" And she said, "I'm repairing an injury on the inside of this man's leg." And I said, "Well, how do you know that?" And she said, "I can see the light coming from this piece of selenite going into his leg, and I can see inside his leg." I thought that was a really great kind of skill. So I got her name and I kept in touch with her. But that started me on my path to find, well, how can I work with this selenite? That seems pretty powerful. So I went around the show, I found a few pieces of selenite, and I said, well, I'll see if I can make something, shape it. Maybe that would make it stronger. I always liked swords anyway. So I started to try to make a sword out of the pieces that I found. But it didn't work. They fell apart, basically. So I was kind of, for about 4 months, I was kind of dead in the water. I couldn't figure out how to do anything with the selenite that I had found. But then my friend was at a rock shop up in Estes Park, and he said, he called me up, he said, "I think I found the selenite that might work for what you want to do." So I said, "Well, hey, get that piece." And he brought it back, and I was it was the right kind of selenite. It was from Morocco, and that's what these swords of light are made from currently. So I told him to kind of bring it back, and what I was able to make about 4 swords. I made four swords from the log he brought me, and at that time I was studying with a spiritual teacher named Simon in the U.S., and she would have 1-week meditation courses up in the mountains in Colorado in Vail. So, and I was going to one of these courses, so I said, hey, she talks about energy a lot. I know she'd like one of these. So I decided to give her one. And I went to the course and went up to her room, and I handed her a sword, and she grabbed hold of it, and she says, oh, I remember this energy. And immediately she said, well, I need another one. And so I had 4, so I gave her 2. But the great thing is that night, there was about 450 people, and she brought the swords down, and she called in Archangel Michael for an activation, about a 15-20 minute meditation using the swords that she just got from me, and she really liked them. And what happened was I saw her about 2 months later and at a satsang, and she looked over to me. She says, hey, I want you to make me 100 of those swords for the next event that we're having in Pennsylvania, at a place called Bryn Mawr. And I said, I didn't say anything at all, actually. I was in total shock, and because I had 2 left. So, but I had a few months to do this. I think I had about 3 months, actually, to do it. So I was able to find the selenite, make these first 100 swords for the course in Bryn Mawr, and went there, and we almost sold out. I think we sold around 85 to 89 swords in the first week. And people just loved the energy. And not only did they love it, but Simon really liked it. And she started to do personal sessions using the selenite swords that I was making. And she would have 3 or 4 people around the table working on the person's energy field with the swords. And then she would come in with these really big ones like I have here. And she would do some further work on their third eye and other, or their heart, or first chakra, whatever needed to work. She had the ability, of course, to see the energy and where they needed to kind of focus. So that's kind of how, that was my first sale, was 100 swords. And I then started making swords for the bookstore that she had, and she continued to do these week-long courses. And my swords really started to get out throughout the world. And there were some, the next course that we had, there were about 20 people from Japan that came. And when they saw the swords, they really got excited, because the Japanese, of course, have a really great affinity with a sword anyway. They have great reverence for the sword. But selenite swords were even cooler or better. So they, all the Japanese bought at least 1 or 2, and I had one lady actually bought 12 swords and took them back to Japan. And the next thing, I got a call from one of the ladies, said, hey, can you come over, bring some more swords over to Japan and do some training for us? So I said, yeah, I'd love to do that. So I made up, I think, about 100 swords and sent them over to Japan. And I came over and we did the first selenite sword training programs in Japan. And they were a great success, and people loved the energy. And that started me going to Japan, and literally some years I was doing 2 trips to Japan to do training and to sell the swords. And so what happened is I used to be in software sales. After I got out of college, eventually I got married, had some kids, and I went into business, actually, selling very high-end software around the world. And that really lasted for about 25 years, and after that is when I got into the crystals. And then pretty soon it was like, oh, I could see if I just worked a little bit harder with the selenite swords, that I could actually stop my day job and just make these selenite swords. And that's pretty much what I did 6 years ago. I stopped working in the corporate world and just focused on this. And the reason is, what the selenite swords do is they really magnify the people that work with them, or what I call the light workers, the energy workers, the body workers of the world that we so desperately need. The swords really magnify them. And that's really the key, because if we look at, it's kind of like if we look at the general population, it's sleeping potential is what it is. If you remember the movie The Matrix, it was that they were trapped in the Matrix, and they were really controlled, or they weren't awake, really. And so what the selenite swords are doing, they really help the light workers of the planet to be more powerful and more effective with whatever modality that they might be using. And so that's why I'm making them. I've come to the conclusion, or the feeling, that this is really my mission, this is really my puzzle piece. And that's really what everybody needs to do, is find their puzzle piece. And I totally encourage anybody that feels attracted to the light, attracted to the energy, is go for it. Don't be shy, don't be afraid. Really get in there and start working with the energy, and then sharing that with your friends and with others, or maybe your clientele if you do that professionally, because the world really needs it. If you really look around, we still don't get it about the environment. We're really kind of destroying our environment. More species are becoming extinct every day than at any time in the history of this planet. And we really hopefully can stop that particular trend and bring in more light, bring in more energy, more frequency, so that we become more aware. So what I want to help do is, I want to help others through these tools to actually wake up, to stop that sleeping potential. The general population, I feel, is really asleep, and they don't understand that the potential within them is they're really light. We're all light, and we really need to use that light, and we need to express that light, and we need to grow in that spirituality. We need to wake up. Everybody has within them that potential, that really God is within us. Our higher self is within us. This is all in our field. The ability to know God, the ability to heal ourselves is all, and others, is all within our field. So what these do is these swords can bring in activations to activate those hidden dimensions of our DNA, so that we can start to really be functioning at a higher level, so that then we can transfer that to others that we know, and that we can really help the planet. And that's really my mission, is how can I train people to help the planet more? And the swords do that. It actually, whatever modality they're into, it just makes them more efficient and more effective. So that's pretty much my story. It's been, I just love it. I've been in Australia here now for about a month and a half, and it's just been a very enjoyable time doing workshops and meeting the light workers in Australia, which I found to be some of the best light workers on the planet. I've come to the conclusion that Australia has a real key role for the entire planet, because of the level of purity here in your environment. You're a little bit more aware of the environment, and protecting the environment, protecting the ocean, protecting the whales, the dolphins that are in the ocean. There's a lot of consciousness here, and that's why I really enjoy coming here and working with everybody to help them become even more powerful. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate the opportunity to share my story.